Well, hello. I am Matt Williamson. Let's talk Minkah. Couple things here. As often is the case, especially this time of year, I find things on the internet that pique my interest and I think will pique yours, and like to reiterate what those writers say, and a lot of smart people out there, and expand upon it. And there's probably a name you're not real familiar with. He's Andy Benoit. He works now for the 33rdteam.com. And I forget where he worked in the media side. It was like 5 years ago, and I loved his work. And he got scooped up by the Rams. So for the last several years, Andy has worked with Sean McVay and the Rams. And I don't know why he's back in the media or what the story is. He's a good dude. He's really, really football savvy. And the article he put out this morning was the X factor for every team out there. And of course, I want to talk Steelers. And his X factor is Minkah. And let me read a lot of what Andy says, because I think it's really good. And I'll pause at times, as I often do, and react to it. But here we go. Besides being a premier playmaker in his own right, Minkah Fitzpatrick does all the little things great safeties do that don't show up on paper. I think that's really well said. For years, the Steelers were a zone-based defense. Under coordinator Keith Butler, who was there from 2015 to 2021, they evolved into a more zone match defense. Now, let me stop. What's zone match? A lot of time, basically what zone match is you start out in your zone. It looks like zone at the snap, and it is zone at the snap. But when somebody comes into your zone, you match them and begin playing man coverage. That's the generic terms for it. So, okay. Under new coordinator Terrell Austin last year, they continued that trajectory, morphing into a predominant man-to-man defense. Something you and I have talked about a ton. Big press man corners, Joey Porter, blah, blah, blah. On third downs, they ranked 10th in man coverage usage and third in cover one success rate allowed. 38%, which probably means nothing to you. But when they were in cover one, single high safety, man coverage, they were very, very good, period. Okay, they were very good. We don't have to get too deep into success rate and what that means and all that. Fitzpatrick was a big reason why. As a deep safety, he has an uncanny sense for nuanced positioning and body angles that lend helpful presence to teammates and cause hesitation in the quarterback. Again, well said. Quarterbacks fear Minkah. Impressively, in Pittsburgh's man coverages, Fitzpatrick displays these traits on the move as a rover. They show up when he drops down as a buzz defender in zone coverage. You guys have seen that a lot, where he starts in that single high look and buzzes to the middle of the field, immediately comes downhill. And a lot of times he's jumping routes. They expect a crossing route or whatever, and he's jumping in front of it. But there's times, as Andy mentions here, where he buzzes down and then grabs somebody in man coverage who's already in the middle of their route. That's hard to do, and most safeties can't pull that off. So back to what he's talking about here. The Pittsburgh Steelers are hoping that soon-to-be 33-year-old future Hall of Famer Patrick Peterson still has some tread left. 32nd overall pick Joey Porter Jr. can evolve quickly, and Chandon Sullivan and incumbent veteran Levi Wallace can provide depth. These are mostly bigger, longer-bodied corners, making them more reliant on playing to help coverage. We've talked about all this a lot. There's a trend of what they're adding at the corner position. Sullivan is the wild card of the bunch. He blossomed into a quality slot defender in Green Bay and Minnesota. If he fails to do that in Pittsburgh's scheme, the Steelers are without an experienced slot corner. Well said, true. Which brings us back to Fitzpatrick. Recall that early in his career, he played all over the defense as a Dolphin, including the slot. So we think about Minkah as that single high guy, and he's great at it. Frankly, I think he's the best in the league at it. But don't forget the versatility that they can display with him, which is big. Fitzpatrick's fellow safeties, Trey Norwood and DeMonte KZ, also have slot experience. The Steelers have options, and they're free to deploy Fitzpatrick however they deem most valuable, be it maximizing his top strengths, playing safety, in parentheses, or leaning on his auxiliary strengths so that other defensive backs can hide their weaknesses, playing the slot, for example. As long as Fitzpatrick, arguably the league's best all-around safety, is available, this question mark riddled secondary has a chance to be good. I read that to you because I think it's extremely well written. I wish I wrote it. And Andy knows the stuff. I urge you to go check him out, follow him, whatever. That's why you pay Fitzpatrick. There's some thoughts out there. Don't ever pay a safety. Look at the contracts guys like Edmonds get or KZ. Just live with them. Yeah, but they can't do all this stuff. And when things go wrong at slot or whatever, you can't just plug them in and they fix the problem. Like Mo and Curly in the boat when there's a hole here popping up and they, no matter what, you're trying to fill the hole with the finger and it opens another hole. Well, Fitzpatrick fills those holes. And one thing I'd say about Minkah a lot, which is an Ed Reed, Earl Thomas type thing, is he's like a great hockey goalie. Like, I'm older than most of you probably, but I remember the Gretzky Oilers, Paul Coffey. Those guys would be so aggressive offensively. Coffey would be deep in the other end. Great skater, puck handler, because they had Grant Fuhr behind him. I can be aggressive because I'm Richard Sherman. I'm going to jump this route because I know Earl's back there. I'm going to be aggressive trying to take the ball away. Steelers led the league in interceptions. Were they all Minkah? No, but his presence, as Andy mentions in this article, has a lot to do with it. Hey, I'm only going to play deep middle and everyone in the league knows, or everyone on the field knows it for this specific play, but you 10 in front of me, take chances that you wouldn't regularly because I'm back here manning the net in case there's a breakaway. I got it. So I thought that was really well written and wanted to share that with you. Let's take a quick break and I'm going to stick with this theme. I'll be back in a minute. All right, I've referenced this a lot over the last couple weeks, and of course, this is list season. But Pro Football Focus, they put out their list of best safeties. Well, Minkah was number one. So I honestly think it's a two-horse race between Derwin James and Minkah Fitzpatrick. But boy, does that remind me of, do you prefer Troy Polamalu or Ed Reed? Minkah's the Ed Reed, Troy is the Derwin. One's a bigger body near the line of scrimmage. One's a deep middle, but can do so much more. So here's what Pro Football Focus had to say about their number one ranked safety. Last season, Fitzpatrick played 640 snaps at free safety, 161 in the box, 112 in the slot, 14 at cornerback, which probably means outside the numbers, and 12 along the defensive line, which I assume just means walked up on the edge, in a blitz position. So a high percentage of free safety. Wherever he was, opposing quarterbacks and receivers were not generally having a great time. Fitzpatrick allowed 25 catches on 36 targets for 369 yards, 123 yards after the catch, 1 touchdown, 6 picks. I mean, that's a pretty good ratio. People talk about quarterback ratio. He had 30 touchdowns versus 3, interceptions. Well, Minkah had 6 interceptions versus 1 touchdown. Pretty good. Back to what he was doing here. I'm sorry. He had 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, and an opponent passer rating of 72.3, which is really good. At safety specifically, whether in a single or 2 deep coverage, Fitzpatrick's field sense and eye for the ball made him an intelligent weapon for Mike Tomlin's defense at all times. But in the end, he's the best safety in the NFL because he can become the point man for his defense as a coverage expert wherever he is on the field. So we talked about Andy, his take on it. He's a film guy. Here's the analytics folks backing it up with numbers and alignments and, stuff that is hardcore facts on paper. And I think they both complement each other really well, that this is the best safety in the league. He is a tremendous football player and is frankly one of the most important Steelers, period. Could they live with KZ and Norwood and those guys? Sure, but you would have to change so much on game day and prep, in terms of your coverages. You'd become much more predictable. I often reference this, like, it wouldn't blow me away if going forward we see a little bit more of Minkah on Mark Andrews. Hey, be Revis Island, be Dion following a tight end around, a Kelsey, somebody like that, some premium move tight end. He can do those type of things, a box and one with him being the one, that type of deal. But I just wanted to talk about Minkah. He's in his prime. I know a lot of people thought it was nuts when the Steelers traded for him. It's like a Jerome Bettis trade. I mean, it's as good a trade as you're going to see in the league, to be very honest with you. And what he does just greatly, greatly impacts the entire defense, and opposing quarterbacks do fear him, much like they did Troy, much like they did Ed Reed, much like they do Derwin James. And that's an impact player that just influences the game dramatically. And not everyone sitting in the stands, sitting in your lazy boy, understands probably what effect Minkah has on the game when he's out there. So I thought this was a good one to do here in late June. Talk to you later. Over and out.